Good morning, great Americans. This is another great American video from the bunker. Um, a lot of videos I've made about, and a couple of stories I've written about the violence, um, the insane violence from the left, the mobs on the left destroying this country, the evil of the left and the Democrats destroying their this country is really starting to coalesce in my eye. It's starting to crystallize. So, unfortunately for you guys who watch my videos, there's only a couple of you. My videos are not scripted and they're not really put together well, and so it's kind of hard to follow. But it's been a journey for me because my thoughts have they're starting to crystallize. And I think I'm starting to see a clear picture of the enemy of America, the enemy of liberty. And so, first of all, the Democrat Party is definitely the enemy of America and the enemy of liberty because they are the political home of all these evil forces that I'm about to talk about. The enemies, the forces that stand against America and liberty and freedom and democracy, they all find their political home in the Democrat Party, in America. In other countries, it's other parties, but in America, their political home is the Democrat Party. They are leftists. I'm going to be nice and not say that all Democrats are leftists because there's still a few old leftovers, still some people have pictures of John F. Kennedy on their wall and stuff, right? Back when the Democrat Party was actually an American party. And it's the same with Republicans. Not all Republicans are conservatives. Okay, I'm a conservative. A political party is a club you can join. And as far as the Republican Party goes, anybody can join. And we see that but I'm going off topic. Anyway, the 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 evil and the mobs in the streets are coalesced. The whole plan is crystallizing. And I'm going to try and make this clear. So first of all, there's two parts to it. One of them is spiritual, which I'm not going to go into because it's a subjective opinion. I cannot prove it. I know it's true, but I'm not going to go there because I don't want to muck it up with religion and all that kind of stuff. The other part is the concrete facts of how it works in America. So, um, what we have seen, the methodology now, which is beginning to crystallize, and where it's coming from, is what is known as the provocation, response, and validation tactic. Provocation, response, and then validation. So, and how that applies to what the Democrats and the leftists are doing, the provocation is by agitating all these brainwashed kids in college and these low IQ Democrat voters, brainwashing them into thinking that Trump and Republicans are fascists and they are the enemy of liberty, or that they're going to destroy democracy. And by the way, they have been aided and abetted in fomenting this lie by the fake news media. So Trump is correct that the fake news media is the enemy of America because they have been part of this movement. So provocation, response, validation. The provocation is telling the mobs that Trump is Hitler, Trump is fascist, Republicans are fascists and they're going to destroy democracy. The response, okay, then the mobs go out and they do what they're doing now. They commit violence. They're attacking ICE. They were attacking Tesla. They tried to assassinate Trump. They just assassinated Charlie Kirk. There was another shooting at another ICE facility. It's like a hot war, a hot civil war. But not quite, but so that's with that response. The response will be when the government under Trump and a few maybe conservative governors too, if this is happening in their states, they say this is intolerable. We cannot. There's too many mobs and too much violence in the street. We can't do it anymore. And they respond with a heavy-handed tactic, right? Maybe martial law, maybe National Guard troops, who knows what. The response. Then the validation is basically, see, I told you so. See? The provocation is to say that Trump is Hitler and he's a fascist and he's a danger to democracy. And then the mobs go out and they go crazy based on that false information. Trump is not a fascist. That's just a stupidity. The provocation, the response will be when the violence has reached a point where the government has to respond in force, and then the validation is that the agitators say, see, we told you so. I'm trying to think of a great analogy for this in real life, but I can't really think of one. But it would be like if I said to you, I said, see David over there? He's violent. That David guy over there, he's a violent dude. Watch, I'll prove it to you. And I go over to David and I start bitch slapping him around, right? And finally, David gets tired of me bitch slapping around and he punches me, which I deserve. But then I say, see, I told you David was violent. I mean, this is the provocation, response, validation, which is a communist strategy. And we all know that the Chinese Communist Party has quite a foothold on American campuses and American schools. And that's where a lot of this is coming from. Others is coming from funding, is coming from sources like George Soros, other socialist things, globalists. But a lot of it, the playbook, it's right out of the CCP Chinese Communist playbook, which itself draws its methods from the Marxist-Leninist playbooks for subversion, where propaganda creates a self-fulfilling prophecy to erode legitimacy and justify escalation. It's illustrated through, of how communist influenced groups like Antifa and other CCP-backed extremists, they operate to destabilize their opponents. So I'm going to read something for you here real quick. So step one, the preemptive labeling as authoritarian. The first phase involves aggressively branding the target as fascist, authoritarian, or Nazi-like. Well, we've seen this since the beginning of the Trump's presidency. Democrats themselves, leftists, and the fake news media at CNN have all done that exact thing. They played right into the Chinese hands. So that you do that, you brand them. In other words, to get the public used to the idea and to legitimize defensive actions. So this isn't just rhetoric. It's a deliberate smear to frame the opponent as inherently oppressive, and that makes the resistance morally justified. Okay. This mirrors historical communist tactics where accusations of authoritarianism are weaponized to silence dissent. Let's see here. I'm reading. I'm going to touch on a couple of points of what I'm reading here. The Epoch Times ran a piece with its focus on Chinese Communist Party infiltration, noting how it uses false historical narratives, like portraying itself as anti-fascist in World War II parades to label global opponents as aggressors. So anyway, so the next step is inciting the uprisings or the unrests. Okay, so here we go. Step 2. Once the label sticks, right? You're a Nazi, you're a fascist. Once that label sticks, thanks to fake news and thanks to the brainwashing of the kids, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this in YouTube videos. Troops of fascism. I'm like, how stupid are you? This requires a very low IQ and a level of ignorance, which is something else that the Democrats have provided us with, because they have destroyed public education over the last 40 years. They have set the stage, right? First thing is to just make people dumber than fucking dirt, and then they're stupid enough to believe this. So once the Nazi label sticks, then they provide chaos through riots, protests, funded extremism to force the opponent's hand, or in this case, the opponent being Trump, right? First you label him a Nazi, then you provoke chaos through riots, protests, and funded extremism to force his hand. The goal is escalation. Create conditions where the target must respond with force to restore order, turning a defensive measure into proof of tyranny. See, that's the "see, I told you so" part. So Fox News reported on how violent anarcho-communist groups like Antifa incite riots under the guise of anti-fascist protests, driving online and street-level discord to overwhelm authorities. In a 2025 piece, Fox News critiques Democrats for flipping from law and order rhetoric. So that's right. With January 6th, Democrats were all about law and order, and they were against the mobs. Now they glorify the mobs, and they glorify the unrest, like the LA unrest and so forth. Think about that. Breitbart also details Chinese Communist Party funding of U.S. extremist groups tied to the party, U.S. extremist groups tied to the party, and funnel millions of dollars to provoke instability and anti-American actions, mirroring domestic tactics like the 1989 Tiananmen suppression. So that's that. Then step number 3 is the validation, or the "see, I told you so." The "see, I told you so." So once they have provoked the response, which could come arrests, we're seeing a lot of arrests, military deployment, curfews could be next. Then they broadcast these as vindication. See, we told you Trump was authoritarian. So this loops back to step 1. Now more people will be radicalized once they see Trump take action to protect the citizens. Now more dummies will be radicalized. And it's a loop. It's an evil genius. I got to tell you, man. It's how do you fight something like that? Like I said, this loops back to step 1, radicalizing more supporters, eroding trust in the institutions, and then positions the agitators as victims. It creates a ratchet effect, normalizing extremism and paving the way for further subversion. And I'm going to put some links to some stories about that. Now, and here's a broader context of Chinese Communist Party influence. So this method is not unique to China, but it is amplified by the CCP's United Front strategy. And they export it via funding, AI-driven narratives, and alliances with Western radicals. It is part of communism's specter that's haunting the world, using all kinds of, they use environmentalism or extremism as cover. Fox News has warned of exported surveillance aiding authoritarian suppression abroad, closing the loop on global unrest, and so forth. So, in essence, this tactic weaponizes perception to manufacture consent for upheaval, succeeding in polarized environments. So that is what's happening. It's the provocation dash response dash validation tactic, created originally by the old Marxist-Leninist, brought to perfection by the Chinese communists, exported to America, funded by extremists like the Chinese and also Soros and other globalists. And we see it playing out before our eyes. And, you know, the really sad thing is to watch these lowlife. Let me tell you something. The next time you see one of these pigs, and I'm going to call him a pig, on CNN, who refer to Trump as a fascist or a Nazi, you are looking at a dupe and a useful idiot of the Chinese Communist Party trying to foment revolution in the United States. Because by calling Trump a fascist and a Nazi, you foment the disruption in the streets, you foment and incite the riots, you force Trump's hand to protect the people by calling out the National Guard or whatever, and then you're going to sit back and say, I told you so. You know, Trump, I tell you what, man, Trump hit the nail on the head when he said fake news outlets like CNN are the enemy of the people, and they all said, oh, you're a communist? No, actually, CNN is the communist because they are assisting with the communist game plan, which is what I just described. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. So the question is, how do you stop it? The genie is out of the bottle, and I would say that the first revolution, and revolution I mean circular, this provocation-response-validation has now come full circle one time. What happens when it goes full circle the second time? So the provocations have taken place, right? They've been calling Trump Hitler, and the Democrats too. They're part of the Chinese. The Democrats are the dupes and the bitches of the Chinese party. They engaged in the provocation. They're forcing the response. Now we see Trump sending out the troops and stuff. And now they're going to say, I told you so. See, we told you he was a fascist. What happens after the next circle? The next circle is that more and more people are going to see Trump sending out the National Guards, and they're going to join the riots in the streets. And then it's going to get worse. And then Trump has to call out more troops, and maybe he does curfews, maybe he does martial law. And then they say, see, I told you so again. That will be the second revolution of this circular uh, evil plan. And then what happens the third circle, when it happens for the third time? Will we reach true revolution or civil war? And how does Trump stop it? How does Trump protect the people, smash the insurrectionists, the real insurrectionists, and yet not play into the "see, I told you so" people who are waiting for him to do that very thing? Man, I tell you, I don't know. I'm thinking information is the key. Somebody in somebody needs to somebody who can reach the American people, and I'm not him, needs to articulate exactly what I'm talking about and make people aware of what's happening, right? So that when Trump does, if he does institute martial law and curfews and all that, people won't get mad at him because he was forced into that position. Man, it is a scary thing. So that is the latest. I'm going to throw a couple of links in here into this video. And woo, scary stuff. I tell you what, I never, you know, I turned 18 in 1980. In my first election, I voted for Ronald Reagan. And the 80s were so great. The 80s, in retrospect, the 80s were so great. None of this shit was happening. It was morning again in America. And Ronald Reagan was the economy was booming. Racial discord was at an all-time low. You know, America's favorite dad was Dr. Huxtable, Bill Cosby, and the Bill Cosby Show. The king of pop was Michael Jackson. Ronald Reagan had Michael Jackson over at the White House. There was even a crossover in music. A lot of black sort of music and rock were sort of fusing, right? Eddie Van Halen played a solo on the Michael Jackson song. Now, I know that this seems kind of goofy, but those were wonderful times in retrospect. And back then, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that we would see what we're seeing today. I want what I don't know. So, and there's one very important question, and I'm gonna wrap up the video with this. But aside from everything I said, there's a sort of an interesting question in all this. How did kids who go to college become so susceptible to this ridiculous propaganda that so many of them buy into now? They're pro-Gaza, they hate Jews, they're pro-Gaza, they're pro-Palestine. They think conservatives are Nazis. They think Trump is a Nazi. They embrace socialism. I mean, how did kids going to school, college, become that stupid? Really? How did this happen? Is it a breakdown of parenting and families? Well, we know that the Democrats have destroyed the building block of society, and that is the family: mother, father, and children. They've destroyed what it means to be a woman or a man. They say you can be whatever you want to be. There's 36 genders, gay marriage, transgenderism. Your pronouns. I mean, they have literally destroyed humanity and the ultimate building block of society. I mean, if society were a brick building, then the family is a brick. And if you destroy all the bricks in a brick building, you destroy the building. They have done that. Is that part of the problem? That these kids go into college and they come from families who have no clue about right or wrong or good and evil. They don't go to church. A lot of them don't believe in God, or worse, they believe in something nutty like witchcraft or something. Uh, is that the problem? Of course, we know schools are the problem. Schools have been indoctrinating kids into all kinds of stupid shit for years. Is it gone too far? Is this the end of America? Or is it still salvageable? But I really would like to know how kids became so susceptible to this bullshit. You listen to some of these, you watch some of those Charlie Kirk things where he's sitting at the table and people are asking him questions. And some of the insane, evil poison and venom that drips out of the mouths of these kids is just absolutely shocking. Who are these kids' parents? What planet do these motherfuckers come from? How did that come to be? Because however it came to be, it needs to be stopped. It really does. Yeah. So, and and I'll just close by saying, if you're one of the idiots who think that Trump is fascist, Trump is Hitler, Republicans are fascist, then you really are one stupid, ignorant motherfucker. You are literally playing into the hands of those who are trying to destroy this nation. You will obviously have no sense of right or wrong. Who the fuck are you? And will you pull your head out of your ass in time to save your immortal soul? Man, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm going to put a few links in the description of this video, and I hope you click them, and I hope you share this video. Have a great day. Have a great week. Today is Monday. Is today Monday? Yep. Today is Monday. I guess I should have said that at the beginning. Today is Monday, September 29th. I can tell you this in closing. This will not fix the problem, but it will surely help. Make sure you get out in the midterms and get your friends to vote Republican. Help Trump complete what he's doing. Look at what I'm talking about is a serious kind of broken in the very fibers of society, and government can't fix that. That has to happen at the family level, the church level, the community level. But Trump can do some things, and he needs a Congress to help him. And that means in the midterm elections, we need to put more and more Republicans in the Congress and also in the state governorships and state legislators. And then, of course, in 2028, when Trump leaves, we have to elect someone to take up his cause where he leaves off. Look, after everything I have just told you, there is no way that this country can survive another Democrat president. Nope, cannot be done. They are the tool. They, the mobs, and the fake news are all the tools of the Chinese communists and other globalist forces that are trying to overthrow the United States of America. That's a fact. That is a fact. And yeah, you just got to do it. Anyway, I will see you in the next great American video. Adios, muchachos.